to week 8, making time and sparing an hour every week for the 8 weeks is not something we take for granted. We are very proud of you that you're doing this for your businesses. And yeah, you're definitely going to take your business to the next level. With the AI, I think it's very important to note that we are at crossroads of, a technical revolution where AI is just transforming sectors, societies, industries, companies, and the way women just live and work. And as women entrepreneurs, we believe that you are uniquely positioned to lead in this space, to bring, your fresh perspectives and also innovative solutions that will shape the future of AI. Today, we are going to explore not just the incredible opportunities that AI offers, but also the ethical challenges that come with it. And I think this is very, very important that we ensure that AI is used responsibly, it's very inclusive, and with a commitment to fairness and transparency. So when you do look at AI, AI is going to be will only be as strong as the diverse voices, your voices that help shape it. And that's why, your participation and presence, here today is very important. We have to include ethical considerations from the beginning. You're going to create solutions that are not just impactful, that but are going to prioritize the well-being of people and communities. So with those few remarks, thank you for being here. We look forward to the incredible insights and ideas you're going to bring to the table. At this juncture, I would like to pass on the mic to Damali Sali, the co-founder and CEO of Ideation Corner, to present the highlights from the quiz that was taken last week, and also to introduce the AI expert that we are very humbled to have here today with us. So over to you, Damali.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for that. In fact, ladies, this is our last session. Finally, we are done. So it's not our last quiz, though, but it's the last session. You'll still have a quiz after this class, which you will answer, but you will not have a session for us to go through it. I am going to share my screen to give you the results of our last quiz. We didn't perform as well as we performed on the quiz before. So let me try to go through it. Sandra, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So 116 of you did respond to this quiz. So I'm very happy that none of you seem to have dropped off since the week before. And as we mentioned before, you're going to have to have gone through all the quizzes if you're going to get a certificate. Of course, you can still get the knowledge even if you don't do the quizzes. But for those who are going to get the certificate, will have had to complete this quiz. So 116 of you did complete the quiz. And it was purely based on our last session, which was looking at marketing, sales, and operations using AI. For the first question, 97% of you got it correct, and we're really happy about that. Where we did ask, the question was, what does AI do in marketing and sales? So 97% of you correctly identify that artificial intelligence does increase the efficiency of your operations in sales and marketing. So that's great. The second question was looking at what AI tools create emails and tagline, and 72% of you got this question correct. The correct answer was ChatGPT. Of course, these are the other options that were there, but the correct answer was ChatGPT, and the majority of you did get that right. Question number 3 was, what do AI salespeople do? Now, this answer wasn't, we didn't go through it in the training, but it was in the videos, and I think in some of the reading material I sent. So 64% of you did get this correct, that AI salespeople, their role is both as qualifying leads and as they also sell products. So majority of you got this correct, but I know that you would have had to have watched the video content for you to have gotten that answer right. So I'm happy that at least the majority of you did get that right. Fourth question was, why is there a need to have balance between artificial intelligence and humans when you're doing your sales and marketing? And the largest percentage of you, 71% of you got this correct. And the correct answer was, it does increase efficiency, it improves your service, and improves your sales. So the correct answer was all the above or all the below. and you did 71% of you did get that right. Fifth question was, what do AI algorithms analyze? And 59% of you got this question right, and that was that they analyze customer data primarily. Of course, the most correct answer was that they analyze customer data, though they also do market trends, they also do sales reports and industry research. However, the primary goal is to analyze customer data. Question 6 was, what AI tools help in operation? And 52% of you got this correct in selecting both. So both chatbots and email marketing are tools that help in operation. Some of you say just one of them, but both of them were the correct answer was both of them. Seventh question was, why is it important to train employees in artificial intelligence? Unfortunately, here, the majority of us got this question wrong. 62% of you actually got this answer wrong. The main reason why we should train our employees in artificial intelligence should be to drive growth. Of course, naturally the output also is improving service, improving sales, but also you should be able to do that. Question number 8 is, what comes first in AI implementation? 56% of you got this correct, saying that the first step. Oh dear, the graph is not here, but anyway, I'll include this in AI implementation. So the first of you, 56% of you got this correct, saying that the first thing that comes first in AI implementation is identifying the goals. Because until you identify the goals, you can't actually implement, strategically implement AI properly. Question number 9 was, which of these is most important when using AI? Let me see, what were the options? These were the options. Is it efficiency? Is it ethics? Is it trends? Is it training? Majority of you got this wrong because you said it's efficiency. But the correct answer was actually ethics. And I'm so happy that today our module is on ethics. So I was like, okay, they got this answer wrong, but at least we're going to be talking about ethics this entire module. So we're going to go through that. But yes, the correct answer was actually ethics, and 54% of only 28% of you got that correct. The last question was, how do you keep AI effective? And 53% of you got this answer correct, and that is by continuous training. You have to continuously train AI, reiterate, then feed it with more information and data. That's how you keep it more effective. And 53% of you got this right. So as you can see, comparing the overall average score this week, which is 55%, compared to last week's overall score, which was 87%, we did perform much more poorly in this module. I think this module and the data module are the two modules we've performed poorly in, where we've got our average score at 55%. And the concepts that got the lowest scores were understanding the ethical considerations in that you must take into effect when you're using AI. The other points that we got wrong was the most important reason why we use AI is to improve customer service. So while most of you demonstrated a solid grasp of the key concepts, there are some areas that we were weak in, but the areas that we were weak in, which is balancing humans and artificial intelligence, also looking at the ethical issues that may come up with using artificial intelligence. Those are the two main areas that we were weak in. And I'm happy that this session is actually tackling those questions. So I'm really thrilled that that's what we are doing today. Sandra, how am I doing on time? I'm done with the submission.
Doing fantastic. You only had 47 seconds left. So thank you, Damali. I don't see any questions in the chat regarding last week's quiz.
Yes.
Ladies, as I've mentioned in the previous trainings, if you have any questions, if you need any clarifications, please put them on the chat. So Cynthia, there are no questions to answer for now. Over to you, Damali, to introduce our AI expert.
Okay, so ladies, we have an AI expert in our midst who's going to deliver this last module. He's also the only gentleman who has trained. So Ivan, you're the only guy who's appeared here providing training in this entire program. It's only been ladies. And Ivan is an AI expert with a PhD in artificial intelligence theory from the University of York, where his research centered in frontier models. His academic background also included research and teaching in AI governance and AI ethics. Ivan has held leadership roles in AI consulting, governance, and strategy at top organizations such as PwC and the British Standard Institute, where his work has focused on developing ethical AI and data frameworks, and also advising on AI and data strategy. We hope that you're really excited to attend this module that is to be delivered by Ivan, who is a Ugandan. That was very important. The Ugandan with international experience in AI. And again, he's the only gentleman who's come here to do any training. So you know he's a really expert if we allowed him in here, because this is a ladies only stuff. So, Ivan, you're very welcome. Let me stop sharing, and we are over to you. We are in your hands now, Ivan.
Thank you. I feel very privileged to be invited into this space. Thank you. Let me start my screen sharing. Give me a second. Good. I hope you can see that.
Yes. Sandra, can you see the screen as well?
Yes, I can.
Excellent.
Good. I won't bother with the introductions. I think Damle has done a good job. I borrowed your logo, Damle, from the internet. I hope that
Thank you. Fine. It looks pretty. I like it.
Okay, so we have a lot to cover today, and we won't be able to get, unfortunately, we won't be able to get into a lot of these topics into great detail. But I hope that today you'll be able to get some kind of surface knowledge about the kind of topics that are discussed in AI ethics. I think the objective for today is to give you an understanding of the key ethical issues related to AI. And we'll mainly focus on bias and privacy concerns. Then we'll discuss strategies for mitigating the highlighted concerns in AI systems. And then we will talk briefly about the future of AI. One, in terms of AI ethics, where is that going? And then also in terms of developing AI models, where do I see the future trends in those particular perspectives? I would like to start with what appears to be quite reductive now that I know that you've already done several courses already, but it's important to frame the discussion that we're going to have a clear understanding of what AI is, and to understand how some of these other terms that are used sometimes interchangeably with AI relate to AI. Now, the broad research area or the broad field of AI is the field of computer science that seeks to create intelligent machines that can replicate or exceed human intelligence. Now, within that, there's a subset called machine learning. Now, machine learning aims to develop these intelligent algorithms that look at data and can be used to improve upon that data to make decisions or predictions. Now, within machine learning, there's a smaller subsection called deep learning that uses neural nets to extract these intelligent algorithms that can make decisions. And of recent, about 2 or 3 years ago, the particular models of neural nets called transformer models, which have been applied to generate content, written, visual, creative content. And that's most commonly known as generative AI. Now, these stats around the market, the projected market size, and the future jobs to be created by AI, that data is a bit old. I've used this slide before in previous presentations, and this data is from about 2 years ago. Since then, we have seen how these large models have grown, the ChatGPTs and so on. So that those figures should be much higher right now. But that gives you some kind of impression about the size, the potential economic benefits of AI. Again, this slide might also be a bit reductive, but it's worth talking about what AI can do for business. In the first column, we have these hardwired systems, and these are systems that are built in a particular way, and you cannot change how they work. and you can use them for helping people perform tasks faster and automation. Then in the second column, we have adaptive systems. And these are systems that learn in response to a task, right? And then you can also divide it by roles. The first row is talking about augmenting human tasks. And then the bottom row is talking about creating AI autonomy, creating machines that work with a degree of independence. Now, because AI has vast implications on how it can impact life and how it can change economy and livelihood, there's an emerging field called AI ethics. And this is a focus on the moral principles, values, guidelines, governing the design, development, and deployment and use of artificial intelligence systems. AI ethics seeks to ensure that AI technologies operate in ways that are fair, transparent, accountable, and beneficial to society. Now, what has emerged in the field of AI ethics is what I call a principle-based approach. And this principle-based approach aims to develop principles that guide AI developers to be responsible and mitigate risks while promoting the positive use of AI in society. Some of the most talked about principles in AI ethics are the ones that I put up on the screen: fairness, transparency, accountability, privacy, safety, autonomy. There's certainly many more principles beyond these. If you're going to use AI, it's important that you understand that you try to understand what principles apply to your need, to your values, and to what your industry and customer requires. So this is not an exhaustive list of principles, but these are some of the most discussed principles in terms of AI ethics. Now, why do we need to study AI ethics? Because AI comes with a lot of risks, and again, this is a non-exhaustive list of risks that can accompany the application of AI, but they're worth talking about in some detail. And the safety risk concerns risks related to the malfunction of AI systems, which could lead to accidents, harm, or unintended consequences. I'm sure a lot of you have seen discourse around self-driving cars. Now, there are a lot of safety risks associated with developing AIs like that, for example, that can drive cars. So one particular area of AI risk is that kind of safety concerns. Then we have issues related to justice, and we're going to see some of these today. These are going to be the focus of some of our discussion. These are issues around bias in algorithms that may lead to discrimination against certain groups of people and other injustices. Then we have risks around privacy. Again, this is another risk that we're going to focus on today. And this is a potential for AI systems to misuse personal data or violate individuals' privacy. Then we have security risks. These are vulnerabilities in AI systems that can be exploited by malicious actors. We've seen a lot of, I think we're living in a misinformation age, and that has security implications. So there are risks around that, and there are people who study those risks. Then, of course, the economic risks. People are talking about the impact of AI on employment and economic structures, and how automation might displace jobs, leading to unemployment or wage disparities. Then we have existential risks. These are the ones that have captured the public imagination the most. These are theoretical concerns about robots taking over the world, including the potential of the loss of human control of AI systems and the consequences of superintelligent systems acting against human interests. Then we have environmental risks. These are concerns around the effect of AI on the environment. More and more we're seeing these days that these systems require a lot of computational power, and this computational power exerts a great degree of demands on the environment. For example, if I could give you an example, to generate an image using one of these ChatGPTs or one of these generative AIs that does image generation, you're using enough energy there equivalent to charging your entire phone, a full charge on your entire phone. So these systems are highly energy intensive. As it is right now, these costs are not being transferred to you because these big companies are still trying to get market share. So these costs are not, you're not bearing these costs. But eventually, I suppose when the market has settled, these costs will eventually be transferred to you. But they also have a knock-on effect on the environment. Then there are risks around inequality. These systems will broaden the digital divide. Countries that have far better infrastructure and can afford to build these expensive systems, I think they'll have an advantage over countries like us in the developing world, where we are still have a lot to catch up in terms of infrastructure to compete with these countries. And then, of course, there are dependency risks. An over-reliance on AI systems can lead to reduced human oversight and reduce critical thinking, making individuals and organizations vulnerable to when these systems fail. There is a very popular example of this. Was an Air France flight, I think, that crashed because the AI system of the autopilot failed, and the pilots didn't know how to correct a very simple issue. It turned out that they were diving and they couldn't recognize that the plane was diving. And because they had become over-reliant on this autopilot, they were unable to use their critical thinking to solve the problem. And that led to loss of lives. And then we have these weaponization risks, and these are concerns around how AI is used in warfare. Again, this is a non-exhaustive list of AI risks, but this gives you an indication of why it is important to study AI ethics and what that can do to our use and deployment of AI. Now, on the right side, you'll see this kind of pyramid structure. That is an example of how risks are assessed and governed. This risk-tiered approach has been adopted by the European Commission, and you're going to hear a lot about, if you're doing AI ethics, you will hear a lot about the EU and its AI Act. The EU and the AI Act is the most advanced and far-reaching AI regulatory and legal framework for AI. They were the first to develop this kind of in-depth regulatory framework. And the way they prescribe controls for AI is to create a risk framework in which you have the AIs that pose an unacceptable amount of risks, those will be banned. The ones that pose that kind of medium in this orange band, those will be highly regulated. Then the ones that are there with limited risk, they will require some degree of transparency. And then they have these lower risk AIs in which the deployer has no obligations. But since we're the first in the field, a lot of people are taking the lead on what they have done. So the EU AI Act is a major reference point in a lot of AI ethics. So we are not going to cover all the risks. We're only going to talk about a few of them. One of the risks that I thought was important to highlight is bias. And bias in an AI system refers to an AI that produces results that reflect and perpetuate human biases within a society, including historical and current and social inequalities. There are a few examples here. In the first frame, that kind of headline we see in 2017, Amazon developed an AI system to do recruitment. When they deployed it, it turned out that the AI system was biased against women. So it was only picking out men for the positions. And this was true even when they tried to anonymize that, like if you remove the names from the CV, the AI could still identify that this is a woman's CV and it was removing them from consideration for some of these positions. The other example that we have there on the top right corner is a system called the Correctional Offender Management Profiling for Alternative Sanctions. I know that's wordy. In short, it was called CAMPAS. Now, this one is quite interesting because it was adopted in the US judiciary system, in the US legal system. And the idea was that they felt that some of the judges had biases, and they wanted to remove the judges from decisions like around who gets parole, who gets bail, or is let to go out of prison. Now, this is an example of some of the biases that the system had. These two individuals, Vernon Prater and Brisha Borden, they had committed petty theft, petty crimes. I think Brisha had done some shoplifting, and I think Vernon had stolen. I'm not sure what he had stolen, but it was all petty crime. And for some reason, the system ranked Vernon as a risk of reoffending at a 3, and ranked Brisha at a risk of reoffending at 8. Now, this meant that Brisha didn't get the bail while Vernon was let free. As far as we know, Vernon went on to commit a lot more crimes. Brisha never offended again. So the system again was perpetuating some biases. There was some reason why it felt that Brisha would reoffend, and those reasons likely surrounded her race or the fact that she was a woman. Then at the bottom, we have an example of generative AI and the biases that it has. Someone went into these systems and prompted the AI to generate images of a Black doctor, an African doctor treating white kids. He prompted it 300 times. 299 times, it generated an image like the right bottom of the corner, in which the doctor was a white male and the children were Black. Only one incident did it generate an image of a Black doctor and a white child, which was what was requested. And in that image, it made the Black doctor a witch doctor. So the system had some inherent biases in it. Now, what causes these biases in AI? One is the poor quality of the data in which they're trained on. So if the data that you're using to train the system has inherent biases, as in the case for Amazon, they trained it on their previous hiring data. Now, because they had previously been hiring mainly men, the system thought that what the people were looking for, what the Amazon employees was looking for, were male candidates. So that's why it was biased against women. It was the same case with the campus system, right? It was trained on previous convictions, but since the previous convictions were all biased, the judges had been biased against women and Black people, the system thought those are the kind of traits that it should surface. The same with these image generating AI. It's been trained on images of white doctors treating Black children. So that's why it defaults to these images. So if the data you're using is poor quality or unrepresentative, then those biases will show up in your AI system. There's a phrase that's become popular in use, meaning garbage in, garbage out. If the data you put in is garbage, the results you get out will be garbage. The other reason why this problem might occur is something called algorithmic bias, that the algorithms are being designed to be biased. One way in which an algorithm can become biased is called, we can call that an optimization problem, right? There is a story, there's a Greek myth called the legend of King Midas. Now, King Midas was this king in Greece, and this might help you see how an algorithm might be biased. King Midas was a king in Greek mythology who wanted that who asked the gods to make everything he touched turn into gold, right? Now, the idea that King Midas had that was driving that request was that he wanted to be very wealthy. Now, it so happened that on one day he touched his daughter and she turned into gold. Now, this is not what he wanted, because his idea was to become wealthy. He wanted objects he touched to become gold, but he didn't specify that in the way he designed his ask to the gods. So the knock-on effect was that something that he valued was not represented in the request that he made. So this can happen with algorithms. How you optimize them matters. So for example, if you build an algorithm that wants to decarbonate the seas, like you program a robot and say, I want you to go and decarbonate all the oceans. Now, the robot might realize, okay, the best way to solve this problem is to get rid of human beings, because they are the number one causes of carbonization in oceans. And that is an algorithmic failure, an optimization failure, because while you've stated what you want, We've not clearly stated what you value. So these happens in algorithm. When you're training these algorithms, it's not always the case that you can include the values that you feel are important. And that might create this kind of bias in the system. And then, of course, there's human bias. The people who run the machines might have an outlook that is biased and might lead them to make to train the robot in such a way that, or to train the AI in such a way that it produces these biased results. The second issue I wanted to talk about was privacy. Again, I think this is an important concern. AI privacy refers to the practices and principles and technologies used to protect individuals' personal data and privacy when interacting with or being impacted by an AI system. AI privacy is becoming increasingly important as AI becomes more integrated into daily life. We see AI being used in personal assistance to healthcare, finance, and government services. Now, regulatory services have taken an interest in regulating privacy. And some of the reasons why they want to regulate for privacy is they want to protect. Again, there's that reference to the EU, because the EU had the most advanced GDPR, which is data protection laws, and a lot of the other countries in the world have since copied them, including Uganda, who have adopted a lot of the GDPR stipulations that were created within the EU Act. But you also have privacy guaranteed by your constitution in Uganda. It's a right. You have a right to privacy guaranteed by your constitution. Another reason why there's an interest in regulating AI is preventing data misuse. Again, we've developed this data protection and privacy regulation in Uganda. That is a law in Uganda. Again, as I said before, that was modeled after the GDPR in the EU. So you are protected from data misuse. The other reason is the regulators want to assure accountability. And this will hold business responsible for data transparency and ethical handling. Now, that remit is currently under NITA Uganda in Uganda. There's a personal data protection office within NITA which aims to regulate how data is used. I understand that NITA is going to be dissolved in about 2 years, so I'm not sure where that remit will move, probably to the Ministry of ICT. Two, the regulators want to ensure trust, and that's why, again, the law penalizes the misuse of data. I think as it stands now, you face a fine of about 4.8 million shillings if you misuse data, or you risk imprisonment of 10 years or both for misusing data. Then autonomy. The law has to protect you individuals, your autonomy. So you have a right, again, to be secure from invasive surveillance. And then, of course, safety. It's in the interest of the regulator to ensure safety. Now, because of these reasons, it's important that SMEs and organizations like you take an interest to have compliance with these data regulatory privacy laws. And there are several advantages for complying with these privacy regulations. One is, of course, you avoid the fines and the penalties. Two, you build this kind of customer trust. You mitigate that damage that comes with losing customer trust in case your data is breached and it falls into the hands of the wrong people, or if it's misused. Three, you avoid these financial risks. If you don't handle your data, if you don't control for data privacy, you are at a risk of cyber attacks and losing that data. So it's in your interest to comply with this data regulation. Three, competitiveness. There's a lot of privacy conscious business partners that are out there in the world, and they want to ensure that they are dealing with people who are compliant with data regulations. Three, you can be exposed to third-party risks. So let's say you're collecting some data, you're managing it properly, but then you pass on that data to a third party that misuses it. You are liable for that misuse of that data. So you want to be sure that you've got good control over your data. And then the last point there is growth. Again, partners are looking to work and with SMEs that are compliant with the law and respect data privacy. Now, the third risk I wanted to highlight is one that's unique to generative AI. I know that a lot of you, or most of you, your interaction with AI is going to come in form of generative AI, these chat GPTs, Google Geminis, and so on. And using these models comes with a risk of what is called AI hallucinations. So AI hallucination or artificial hallucination is a response generated by an AI which contains false or misleading information presented as fact. If you've played around with some of these AIs, for example, and asked them to generate your profile or define you, you would have seen that the AI will never tell you that it doesn't know. It will just generate something to fill that space. This is what's called AI hallucinations. And this has real world consequences. Some of them are highlighted in in the slide I've developed here. Now, why does this happen? This happens because AI tools like ChatGPT are trained to predict what words should come next in the conversation you're having with it. So these systems don't understand. They're simply using an algorithm that says, given the context that this conversation is going, and given what words I've typed before, this is the next word that would come into that sentence. And then it generates an output in that nature. Now, it turns out that they are really good at putting together sentences that sound plausible and realistic, right? But these models don't understand what they're saying. They don't understand those words. They lack logical reasoning to tell if what they're saying actually makes sense or is correct, right? These models were never designed to be used as search engines. Instead, they were thought of as wordsmiths, creative assistants. Like their actual uses for summarizing, outlining, supporting brainstorming, and things like this. So because they don't have this understanding, they sometimes, you're always at risk of these hallucinations when you're using these models. Now, the best way to go around that is to look for models that are grounded. And what I mean by grounded is they are deriving their information from some contextualized data, like search engines and so on. Some of the models that do that are, there's Perplexity, which is also a free to use model, ChatGPT Plus, the one that is the paid version, is also a grounded model, so it will have less risks of hallucinating. And then the models that are built into Microsoft Copilot, I think, are also quite good at avoiding these hallucinations. So how can you mitigate some of these scenarios, bias, privacy concerns, and hallucinations? Let's talk about bias first. One, you want to make sure that the data that you enter into an AI model is diverse, it's representative, and it's transparently sourced. Two, you want to conduct bias audits. This is on the output, right? You want a human being to look over the output of the system and make sure that, okay, this what I've generated here has no bias. You should keep in mind that there's no AI system, none AI system that has been developed without bias. This bias cannot be, you can't assume that there's a system there that is bias-free. All AI systems have certain biases. So what you have to do is to ensure when you're auditing their output, if the bias is, what can I say, has an effect on the goals that you want to use that output for. So you have to conduct a bias audit on the output that you generate. Three, you want to involve multidisciplinary and representational teams in all aspects of AI. Sorry, I've got a warning that my battery is about to die. Could you give me 1 second to?
Sure. We can
Yes.
give you 1 second.
1 second to find to get my charger, and then I'll resume.
Okay, that's fine.
Ladies, if you have any questions, please keep putting them in the chat. This is a very interesting session. And yeah, I think for me, the topic that he was going to into mitigating bias is like bias is automatically there with AI. Because when I was first listening, I was so concerned, like, oh my God, are we always going to be disadvantaged, because of that bias? But it's important that, as women, you get into this space and see how you can manage this bias. And that is going to entail a lot of, participation and inclusion from yourselves. Ivan, are you
Yes,
okay?
I'm good to go. Thank you. Apologies, everyone, for
That's okay. Yeah.
So yes, so the other thing you want to do is yes, involve multidisciplinary and representational teams. You want to make sure that anyone who might be affected by the system has a say in how the system works, or because the easiest way to spot bias is through lived experience. It might be hard for somebody who's not the subject of that bias to understand that this system has discriminated against them. So involving a diverse team, make sure that women, make sure that all races are involved. They will be able to have an input into the system design to make sure that it's bias-free. 2, you want to gather feedback from AI stakeholders. These are the people on the receiving end of your AI, but also from regulators and so on. You want to make sure that once that they have give you some feedback on how the system is performing, and you have to take that feedback into mind and make the adjustments. Then training and awareness, always keep training and keep your staff aware of new developments and make sure that they have sensitivity training on bias and so on. And then, of course, continuous monitoring. This is something that I think was highlighted in the quiz that I saw earlier, which is good. Then you should comply with guidelines. Again, there's the EU AI Act because it's the most comprehensive law that we have on AI regulations. And then you can also look into adopting AI standards if you have access to them. There have been a lot of standards that have been developed on mitigating bias and so, which can guide you on how you can put these controls in your company. We also talked about privacy issues. Again, there are steps that you can take to ensure that you're compliant. One is to make sure that you have informed consent of anyone whose private data might be used in your system. If you're going to use private data, and that is data that can be used to identify someone, then you have to make sure that you have their consent. And you have to be transparent about how you're going to use that data. 2, you have to develop a data strategy. This is simply a strategy that informs you how you're going to manage the life cycle of that data. You have to, how you're going to collect it, how you're going to keep it, how you're going to transform it, and how you will dispose of it. 3, you have to implement privacy by design principles. There are principles out there that show how when you're developing these AI systems from scratch, you've considered the privacy element and that you've factored that in how the system will operate. 3, you have to promote data minimization techniques. This is simply a technique that ensures that you use the least minimal data that you can use for any application that you're building. Like if your system doesn't require to collect somebody's address, then don't collect that data. And you should always have a plan of how you're going to dispose of that data afterwards. 3, you have to understand regulations and comply. Again, we have our local regulations, Data Privacy Act, but it's also good to look into the regulations and policies of other countries that you might be doing business with. 3, again, this advice of adopting data standards, that's very important. And then if you can, actually not if you can, you should always have a dedicated data AI officer. This doesn't have to be a standalone role. It could simply be someone within your company who takes an interest on how data and AI is being used in addition to their roles. It could be you, the CEO, it could be someone else who works with you. but always have someone who is responsible and who will be held accountable for data misuse. Now, let's talk about hallucinations. How can you mitigate hallucinations? You have to understand the model limitations. There's so many different AI models out there, especially generative AI models. I think just 3 months ago, there were 14 different large language models that were brought into the market. So there's a proliferation of models out there. There are so many. I've mentioned some. ChatGPT has 2 versions. It has the public-facing version. It has a paid-for version. Perplexity, Elicit. There are so many. But each of these models have their certain limitations. So if you're going to use a model, try to understand, okay, what is its limitations? What can it do? What can't it do? Where does it get its data from? What kind of data is it trained on? And what are its likely outputs? 2, you have to implement human review processes. You always have to have somebody who reviews that information to catch those hallucinations, right? That means somebody who's an expert in what they do and who can recognize that, oh, this is likely not something that should be in this information that we have generated. Then you can also fine tune and customize models. I think these are a bit more technical processes, but what they essentially mean is that you can take these models and point them to some data and ask them to only generate content from that data. So like you can go to ChatGPT and you copy a bunch of text and say, and ask the model from this data, answer this question. Now, these models normally have what I call a token limit. That means there's a limit of how much text you can insert in it as a reference point. But there are ways in which you can have people to relatively easy build channels that can point at some of these data and say, only use this information to extract information and answer this question based on that information. Establish robust post-processing techniques. Again, these are system-wide controls that determine how you use these generative AIs. Leverage ensemble methods. Again, there are so many models out there, so you can keep checking output against different models to see if there's some kind of convergence on what you need. Prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is how you prompt the AI model that you use. So whenever you're going to use a ChatGPT system or one of these generative AI systems, you give a request, right? Then it generates an output. Then you look at that output and then you prompt it. You can say, okay, rewrite in a way, in a language that's professional. And then it will generate a new output. Then you say, okay, remove a chapter on this. So that continuous prompting is now becoming an expertise in its own right. There are actually organizations out there that are hiring prompt engineers, people who are very good at prompting these generative AI models to create an output that is desirable. So just knowing how to prompt the system to get the best result is now a skill set on its own. So there are courses online on how to do prompt engineering, how to prompt a system to generate the right results. And a lot of these courses are free. You could look up Coursera and these other online MOOCs to find those courses. Then invest in explainable AI. There are systems that are designed to be explainable. Again, I've told you there's so many new models that are being generated, and some of these models are being designed to be explained, to explain how they arrived at the answer. A lot of these models are what we call black box model. You don't know what they're doing to process an answer. Now, what explainable AI does is it gives you an explanation of how the AI arrived at that answer. And then, of course, you have to stay informed on best practices. I'm conscious we're running out of time, so I'll quickly speed through these last 2 slides. One, future trends in AI ethics. I think where AI ethics is going, we're going to have increased regulation of AI. There's be ongoing development of laws. Again, there's that reference to the EU AI Act because it's the most advanced law out there to govern AI deployment and prevent misuse. Two, that the initial stirrings on a global governance of AI. I think 2 years ago, the UK took a lead on this, and they had what was called the AI Safety Summit, in which they called together industry players, world leaders to come to London to discuss how they can govern AI on a global level. This year, the follow-on event was held in Seoul, Korea, and then next year, early next year, in February, there will be the 3rd annual summit on global governance of AI in Paris. 3, there's an increasing ask for AI for social good. If you're using AI and your business has a social good element, you find lots and lots and lots of calls for applications and money that's being made available to develop AI for social good. Take an interest in searching for those applications. Even if you don't have a detailed experience in AI, but your business wants to use AI, some of these calls for application might support you in adopting AI, especially if it's for social good. 3, explainable AI, I've talked about that. More and more people are going to demand AIs that are explainable, in which we understand what they're doing. And then, of course, AI and autonomous systems, I think, especially the war in Ukraine, has kind of created this kind of immediate urgency around how AI is used in military application, but there's also talk about AI in self-driving cars. So there's this immediate focus on how we can do AI in autonomous systems. Lastly, I want to talk about future trends in AI development. And these are trends that I see might start to happen or evolve. One, there will be this continued improvement in generative AI. So in terms of content generation, personalization, application across creative industry, these models are going to get better, bigger, and more reliable. I think the first GPT-2 model that was released about 2 years ago, that was trained on a training cluster, an AI training cluster that cost $1 billion, which is already a huge sum of money. The next model, ChatGPT, that's coming up, GPT-4 or 5, I think, is being trained on a training cluster that costs $100 billion. Within 2 or 3 years, we might see training clusters that cost upwards of $1 trillion. So this increase in computing power and resources is also commensurate with the output of these models. These models are getting better and better. It was estimated that ChatGPT-2, the one that was trained on a cluster of $1 billion, had the intelligence that was equivalent on benchmark tests to an intelligent preschooler. ChatGPT-4 has an equivalent capacity on benchmark tests to an HSC student. Now, they are saying that the next model, the ChatGPT that's coming out, will have output equivalent on benchmark tests to a PhD student. So these models are getting better at whatever they're doing. And in that, they'll become more integrated in creative fields and also integrated in industry as well. But also, it will require less skill to apply these models. That's what I call AI democratization. That's a development of no code or low code AI development. That means you don't have to know coding to use these tools. They are already a service that is applied. You just have to plug in your need and they will respond to you in most cases in natural language. Now, the last two are very interesting, but I don't think we'll have time to go into them. But I'll just say briefly that the goal of AI research has always been to develop AI systems that possess human-like cognitive abilities, enabling them to understand, learn, and apply intelligence across a wide range of tasks, much like a human can. So that's the goal a lot of these companies are aspiring to. But they're still a long way off of that. But while they aspire to that, I see the development of new frontier models that will be quite interesting. And then quantum refers to using quantum processes to supercharge processing. And that, once that's integrated with AI, that will also be very, yeah, it will create very powerful systems. Okay, I'll end my presentation there, and I'm happy to take questions at this point.
Thank you very much, Ivan. That has been very informative and also very encouraging, as much as the risks of what AI brings in terms of ethics. It's good to know that there are solutions, and that is where we come in to play a role. Specifically diverse voices, like women, like even Black women, the regions that we are in. So there are definitely solutions, and women entrepreneurs, I hope you're able to see that you have a role to play. And yeah, this has been a very informative session. So it's 3 now. I'm just going to allow us, I think, like 10 minutes for Ivan to answer some questions. I'll go straight to the ones that are related to what he has presented, and then the ones that are generally related to Ideation Corner, we'll touch those at the end. So the first one is Brian, who asks if you have a LinkedIn account. I'm going to read about 4 questions and allow you to respond, and then read the other 4. Then the next one, I think, is Ryan again, who was asking something about, just hold on, Ryan, where are you? There you are. Financial risks. How can she control cyber attacks using, AI? That is a risk for her. Then the next question is from Nakauki Angela. I tried generating a quote flyer with ChatGPT with my photo and all approved information attached, but ChatGPT came up with a completely different image that wasn't me. Is that part of hallucination? Okay. Then another question is Angela again. On prompting, I always do it with Meta, and Meta will always deliver, but ChatGPT has limits. It will tell you that your time is out and that it can't generate information anymore, and it kind of owns its mistakes. If you try prompting it when you didn't give it all the information required, how do you go about that? Yes. Yeah, so if you don't give it all the information that it requires, it won't attend to you. How do you go on about that? Then Agnes says, kindly clarify on the models. It was not clear. Okay, so let's have those first responded to, and then we'll continue. Over to you, Ivan.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. The first question about the LinkedIn account, I get this a lot. I'm currently not on any social media, and that includes LinkedIn. A large part of my recent background has been in academia, and in academia, we didn't have, there was no need for LinkedIn. There were other systems in place that we used to share information. But ever since I moved into the corporate world, I've become under increasing pressure to get a LinkedIn account, and I'm still resisting, but we'll see. But again, I'm quite happy to be contacted. I'll share my contact information, and if that is helpful, then I'll find time to respond to your questions. The question around financial risks and how they can prevent cyber attacks, that is entirely dependent on the business that you're doing. You would hope to know a bit more about what kind of business you're doing and what kind of data you're collecting and what you're using AI for. The immediate, the first thing that would come to mind is to take an interest in some standards that have been developed around cybersecurity. And what these standards do is that they help you to a standardized way in which to think about how to apply controls for some of these risks. But there are several ways in which AI can be deployed to support to guard against these systems. But that might require a great degree of personal design into the system. For example, if you're using data in a completely unique way, you would need somebody to come in, again, to understand how you're using data and then prescribe the way that AI system can help you defend against those attacks. I think it was mentioned in one of the quizzes earlier on, well, in the results of the quiz that you took, that the first step in applying any AI system begins with defining what goal you want, right? So if your goal is to say, I want to secure this system against some cyber attacks, or want to secure it in some way, then you build the AI system off of that goal, but with a focus on what exactly it is you're doing and how you use data and where your vulnerabilities are. I hope that's helpful. Now, the question about you inserting an image into ChatGPT and asking it to create a flyer, and it generated something else, that could be hallucination, yes, but it could also be a prompting error. It could be the case that the AI ChatGPT didn't understand the task that you wanted to perform. Now, often what we do, there are two ways in which you could have, and I haven't used ChatGPT for images, so I'm not quite sure. But in terms of text, there are two ways you can attach a piece of information that you want the system to improve. One, you can put it in some kind of, you can write the prompt, the question that you want, from, let's say, from this information that I put in brackets, and then you put that information in brackets, generate this and that. And then it will know that the things that are in the bracket is what it should focus on to adjust. There are also, I think there's also versions of ChatGPT that allow you to attach, like you can attach an image or a file, and then you prompt it on that attachment. So I think if I had to diagnose a problem there, I think it was a prompting error, and you could have got results if you had continued playing around with it. Now, on meta prompting and ChatGPT's limitations, yes, I think ChatGPT has a limitation for using ChatGPT-4. And after a few numbers, a few questions of prompting, it reverts you to an older model. The older model still performs quite well in summarizing and all of these tasks. Not as well as ChatGPT-4, but you can still continue playing with that information on ChatGPT with a lower model. So I don't think that should be, unless you want something really complex, I don't think that should be a limitation. I have not used Meta Copilot a lot. I'm very much a ChatGPT person. One, because ChatGPT also has on the site, if you've noticed, they have these enveloped applications that people have built. For example, somebody built an application that allows you to explore the Ugandan Constitution. So you don't have to enter anything, you just have to click on that model and ask the Ugandan Constitution questions, and it will generate it. So there are a lot of these different models, one for scholarly articles, one for depending on what you need. So that's why I prefer ChatGPT. I actually find that the one or two times that I've used the Copilot, I found it limited. I don't think the interface is quite good for prompting. But again, these are are preferences, user preferences. Right? Like some people prefer Android, other people prefer iPhones. Some people prefer MacBooks, other people prefer Windows. I prefer ChatGPT to the other models out there. Now, somebody asked me about the models that I talked about that are grounded in some information. One good one is Perplexity. Sorry, I'm trying to find the chat so that I type it in. Perplexity, that's a grounded model. So Perplexity only gets you information that's referenced. So it won't do as much hallucinating. So if it states something, if you're searching for something, it will tell you where it found that information. Now, if you're a scholar, you might want to look at another model called Elicit, which does the same thing, but for scholarly articles. ChatGPT, the paid version as well, is grounded. But like I said, even the unpaid version has a lot of these models, these built around applications that are also grounded, that will not hallucinate. There's so many models. I think you can do your research around grounded models, and you'll get a lot of references to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Ivan. I think I'm just going to allow us to take two more because we're really out of time, and then we will close. So Julian asks, kindly share links to AI grant codes. And then Angela was appreciating the other side of AI and the risks. So there's a question from Isabella. When deciding to use AI, how can I know if it's a regulatory complaint? So yeah, I think those are the two. So when deciding to use AI, how can I know it's a regulatory complaint? And then I think Julian was asking for links to the AI grant.
So they are, there's so many grants. There's AI for Good. I saw one that closed. The call closed a few weeks ago. Quite interestingly, there's an AI application that's quite useful as well for surfacing some of these grants. I'll try to find it and link.
Okay, once you find it, you can share it with us, and we'll share it we have a WhatsApp thread with the ladies. We'll forward to them. Yeah.
Yes. So what's okay, I found it here. What is interesting about this one is that it also uses AI to help you fill the available grants that it surfaces. I think it's also, I might be wrong, but it's also geotagged, so it will show you the grants that are applicable to where you are. That's if you haven't hidden your location. Two, Isabella asked, how do you know if sorry, you're on mute. I can't hear what you're saying.
I think Isabella meant to say, how do you know if you're regulatory compliant, not complaint? Although Isabella, you still type the same thing, complaint, but yeah, I think she means compliant.
Ah, yes. Well, I mean, you have to understand what the regulations are. The GDPR. There's certain regulations that you know are going to be factored into most GDPR requests and into most GDPR laws. One is how you use the data and how you dispose it, and transparency and so on. But the way I talked about these mitigations, these AI mitigations across the three sectors, and I most likely did you a disservice talking about them in such a haphazard way. The way you should deploy AI or any other kind of ethical aspect of AI is to think about it holistically. Is to think about, okay, what is it that I want to achieve, right? What is it? What are the values that I hold dear, that my company holds dear, like the company values? What are the industry values? The different industries have different values. Different industries regulate for different things. Like the financial industry maybe wants to regulate against privacy of information. That might not be the case in another industry. Different industries value different things. And second, what is it my customers need? Now, based off of these four things, develop principles that you think are important. Remember, in the beginning, we talked about this principle-based approach. So we want to make sure that the way I use my AI is transparent, the way I use it causes no harm, the way I use it causes whatever other principle you might want. Maybe develop 3 or 4. Most companies that I've come across in Europe now are all taking this principle-based approach. So they have AI principles that define their company values and how they want to use AI and what they want to do with the AI. Now, once you have developed this principle-based approach and you've seen what values that you think will hold dear across your stakeholders, including yourself, your company, your customers, and the industry, then you can develop controls that speak to these values. So if it's privacy, you say you want to be compliant, then you make sure that you put controls in your company that ensure that you're compliant. If you want to cohere with some kind of industry regulation, then you articulate what it is these controls are. You have to write them down, right? And then you have to develop systems in the way that you operate, business as usual, the way as you run business as usual, your daily business as usual, to ensure that these values or these steps are upheld, that everybody who works for your company knows anytime I'm going to enter information into ChatGPT, I have to make sure that I've removed personal information, or I'm not using information that can be copyrighted, that can bring us at risk of copyright, or so on, and then I use that information. So you should not be looking to be compliant with regulations. If you have designed your principles well, you should be compliant with the values in your system. You're on mute.
Thank you very much, Ivan. I think with those questions, maybe before I close, I would hand over to Damali to say something. But this has been very informative, very helpful. Over to you, Damali, before I give the closing remarks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think I want to thank Ivan extremely for giving us the time and training us on ethics. And ladies, I hope you've enjoyed this session extensively because we've got expert training on this matter. So Ivan, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time that you've given to us. I know we've gone over, but it's been absolutely worthwhile. And I think I speak for all the ladies to say that we are really, really grateful for the time you've put in. And ladies, I think this is our last session, but it's not our last, it's not the last quiz. You're going to get a quiz regarding this particular session. You'll get it either tomorrow on Thursday. We'll give you the answers, but we will not have a session. So this is our last live session. And you're going to be required to answer the last quiz connected to this module, and then our post-training assessment. So there are 2 new things that you have to complete. And then the people who will appear on all the quizzes that we've done for the last, I think there are 8. There will be 8 by then. Will there be 8? I think yes, 8. Then it's those people who then qualify to get a certificate. And but don't be so hung up on the certificate. The knowledge is way more important, I feel. And we've been recording these sessions. They're all on YouTube. So you can go back to them to listen to them and to get more knowledge and more information. And we will continue to, of course, engage with you in the chat. But beyond that, please join me in saying thank you to Ivan for having given us his expert time to train us. Thank you. Back to you, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Damali. Thank you, ladies. I have a comment. Sandra and Damali, thank you so much for bringing Ivan on board. This was really insightful. The other comments where the ladies are really appreciating it and they found this very useful. So as we close, just to let you know, ladies, that as much as this is the last training, we are going to launch another training on legal and regulatory frameworks that can help in your business. We will share this information. We are partnering with a legal firm called LegalMark, and they are happy to come on board and do this voluntarily to train you on what the legal and regulatory requirements as you run your business. So more learning again, there's never enough learning. I think the more information you get, the more you're able to grow your business. So thank you so much, Ivan. This has really, really been very helpful. And as we come to the close of this, final training on navigating ethical considerations and future trends in AI, I want to thank all of you for your engagement, Ivan for his insights, Damali, and just all of you for taking part in this. We have been able to explore the importance of ethics and why it's very important for AI developers to be responsible in terms of, Ivan took us through fairness, accountability, privacy, security, among others. And if we are transforming industries and creating new opportunities, especially, for women entrepreneurs like yourself. Ivan also took us through the risks, which I think we found very helpful in terms of security risks, safety, privacy, economic, loss of human control, and even environmental risks, among others, that need to be addressed, monitored, and managed. And then even the bias. I think when we saw those pictures, it was very concerning. And that's why your voices as women need to be included. So we need to ensure that AI remains inclusive, transparent, and fair. And this is not just a challenge. Let's not look at this as a challenge. Let's actually look at this as an opportunity for you to lead with integrity and vision. Your roles as innovators and business leaders is very critical in driving the future of AI in the direction that benefits everyone. And you as women entrepreneurs can ensure that technology doesn't just solve problems, but that it does so in ways that are ethical, human-centered, and forward-thinking. So with that, we hope today's session has been very helpful in equipping you with valuable insights, practical strategies, and a renewed sense of purpose. I hope you feel that. The journey ahead is still challenging, but remember, look at the challenge as an opportunity. Thank you once again for your participation. Let's take the lessons we've learned throughout these 7-8 weeks and turn them into actions that drive real change in the world of AI. So we really look forward to seeing amazing things that you're going to accomplish with your businesses in the future. So with those words, we want to thank you all. Please feel free to leave. Thank you so much, Ivan, for sparing. We had booked you for 1 hour, but we've gone over. It's actually 1.5 hours. So it just shows that it was very interesting. And yeah, thank you so much for sparing your time and doing this voluntarily for the women businesses in Uganda.
The only gentleman who's been allowed on here.
I don't take that lightly, but please edit out the part where I ran to get my charger from the video.
Don't worry about that. So thank you all very much. You can leave. Damali and I usually stay on since we are your hosts until you all leave. So we shall just stay on for like 2 minutes and then we'll be able to leave. But thank you.
Yes, the only way. So Ivan, you needed AI to give you a reminder.
I think that's an over-dependent